Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Today, we're talking about zero-touch installation and social distancing and how Nebula helps you do that. So the headlines on this slide haven't been updated in quite some time, but the general thought, I think, still remains the same. Even in best case scenarios, the COVID situation is going to stick around until at least this summer, and worst case scenarios even longer than that. Regardless of your own personal opinions on the validity of the concerns about COVID, I think it's safe to say that you're dealing with customers who are very concerned about it, may even have employees that are concerned about being exposed to your clients or your clients' employees and things like that. So what we want to talk about today is about Nebula. This is our cloud managed networking solution, and it helps reduce the need to go on site or reduces the amount of time, if you do have to go on site, that you need to spend there to do things. So let's talk a little bit here about Nebula. And also, as we go through today, feel free to ask questions. Send them in using the question and answer box in the Zoom interface. I will not normally be able to see chats as we go through. I just don't have enough screen estate. So go ahead and send them in using question and answer. I will see those and I will try to answer them as we go. So here's a brief overview of Nebula. So again, Nebula is cloud managed networking. It's basically taking all of the configuration that would normally need to be done on a device itself and moving it into the cloud. So it gives you centralized and unified control through a single pane of glass for security firewalls, switches, wireless access points. There's zero touch provisioning. Basically, you just need to plug in the device and make sure it's got power and an internet connection. And that's all of the configuration you need to do locally in most cases. In the case of a situation where you absolutely need to use fixed IP addresses at the start, that is one thing you will need to configure directly on the device itself, but only in that situation. So there's no software required. There's no special hardware is required. Richard, I'll get to your question here. We've got some slides on it a little bit later on in the webinar there. And the core Nebula functionality is a free solution. So one of the big questions we come into a lot, if not with our partners, with their customers, comes in with privacy, right? We're moving stuff into the cloud. People are concerned about privacy. They don't want someone at ZYXEL seeing their personal information. So I just want to add this slide in here to talk to you about that. So basically, the only thing that's going into the Nebula cloud is management. So your logs from your devices will get uploaded into the cloud. And then anytime you make configuration changes, those will get pushed out from the cloud to the devices itself. All of your customers' traffic remains where it's supposed to be. So if it's LAN traffic, it stays on the LAN. If it's internet traffic, it goes directly out to the internet. It does not get funneled through our cloud, so we are not touching or doing anything with that. So because of those reasons, we are HIPAA compliant. We are PCI compliant. So now let's talk a little bit about how Nebula works. So everything is being done in the cloud. So how does the cloud know which device it's supposed to be talking to? So the Nebula products, all of them have a QR code. This QR code can be found on the device itself. It can also be found on the box for the device itself. You simply scan in that QR code using the Nebula mobile app, and then you assign it to your customer and to the site that so if your customer has multiple sites, you would assign it to the site that device is eventually going to. Then later on down the road, once it's plugged in, it will check in with the cloud. It will find out which site it's supposed to be at, and it will automatically upload or download the configuration it needs for that site. So because the QR code's on the outside of the box, you can start setting up your devices without ever needing to even take them out of the box. So you can have the boxes sent to your office. You scan those QR codes, assign them to your customer, and then forward them on to your customer's location. On top of that, a lot of these features can be configured before you even get the devices themselves. You simply log into the Nebula interface, go ahead, and if you don't already have the customer set up, create your customer, create their site, and you can start configuring many of these settings before you've even decided, which model of switch you need, which model of AP you need. You can start setting that stuff up in advance. So everything is done through nebula.zyxel.com. So again, unless you absolutely have to set a fixed IP address, there's no configuration done on the unit itself. Even if you wanted to configure a lot of these, you cannot configure them locally if you're going to be using them with Nebula. It has to be done through the cloud. And the Nebula interface has been designed to speed things up and simplify things for you. So it's a smooth down interface. It's lacking some of the advanced features that you may be used to seeing, but because of that, it's a lot quicker to go through there. We've got various wizards and other tools in there to help speed things up, such as the ability to clone existing sites when you're setting up a new site, things like that. Firmware updates are all done through the cloud. Back in the days when we used to travel around, I had a demo I would do where I would create a new Nebula account and configure an access point to have a public hotspot with custom captive portal. And the entire thing took about 5 minutes for me to do. So it's really fast and really easy to get up and running. And just to reiterate something I said earlier, there's no additional hardware or software required. So you don't need to be running a virtual machine or special software on any of your devices. There's no cloud keys, there's no CNAs, there's no wireless LAN controllers needed. Every Nebula capable device is capable of reaching out to the cloud directly with no other intervention required. And because everything's done through our nebula.zyxel.com website, any place you've got access to a web browser or a mobile device, you have the ability to check in on your customers and see what's going on in their networks. So some of the other stuff here that Nebula does, we simplify the VPN process for you. So site-to-site VPNs, really easy to do. You just simply go in, choose your customers' locations you want to link together. You choose the topology you want, and then we take care of everything else of setting up and getting those VPN tunnels running. In the case of remote users trying to get access remotely to the office over VPN, we have the ability to email out a script that will automatically configure L2TP VPN settings to make that super simple. So that works with Windows, it works with Mac, it works with iOS. It does not work with Android, but everything else, that's an easy way to get your remote users easy access back to the corporate network. So again, all configuration changes, all firmware updates are done over the air. In the case of firmware updates, you've got a lot of flexibility on how you want to schedule those updates. You can schedule by site. You can schedule by type of device. For instance, you can set a schedule of what day and time you want access points to be updated versus your switches. Or you can go in there and you can configure individual devices to update at individual times. So it gives you a lot of flexibility based on the customer and their needs on their network as to when those devices will be upgraded. In the case of firmware updates, oftentimes those devices do need to be rebooted and we'll have some brief downtime during that. So that way you can schedule that to when it's going to have minimal impact for each of your customers. And as mentioned before, HIPAA compliant, PCI compliant, and you can see here a whole list of other certifications, privacy laws, things like that, which we are compliant with. We are a global company. Nebula is offered around the globe. So in most major countries, we are fully compliant with all of their requirements when it comes to privacy and security. So Nebula was designed from the ground up to make it easy for you to manage multiple customers and multiple sites. So instead of having to keep track of port forwards or VPNs to get remote access to your customers, they all just automatically show up here in the Nebula interface. And we make it really easy for you to jump through there and get to individual customers or individual sites when you need to make a configuration change or take a look at something that's going on. So all of this core functionality I've talked about right now is included with the free version of Nebula. So Nebula itself, there's an unlimited number of sites, unlimited number of devices that you can manage. Unlike some of the other free or inexpensive cloud solutions, there's no limit as to, you can do 10 devices and then you've got to start paying. The core Nebula is free. So we'll start showing you a little bit of the interface here. So this is showing here on the admin side of things. We've got multiple different roles that you can set up for each of your techs or even maybe for your customer to get access to it. So we've got the ability on a granular level to control access by customer, by site. And then we've got different types of roles that are available. So for instance, if you're providing public hotspot access and you'd like to use usernames and passwords to control access to that hotspot, we've got an account you can set up just for a receptionist that they can generate those usernames and passwords and print them out, but can't do anything else. You can give maybe the head of the IT at one of your clients, you can give them the ability to go in there and look and see what's going on, but not give them the ability to edit things. We've got a dedicated installer role, which allows installers to add devices to customers' networks, but keeps them from being able to make any configuration changes to those customers' networks. A lot of stuff like that. As you can see here, this is the first view you're going to see. This is showing you all of your customers, lets you know if they're using the free or the paid version of Nebula, lets you know how many sites they have. It gives you a brief overview of what's going on with those sites. Once you choose your customer, it will take you to this new screen here. Very similar layout, showing you all the sites that that customer has, assuming they have multiple sites. And again, it gives you a quick snapshot of what's going on. You can use Google Maps integration here to create a visual representation of where those sites are on the globe. And then once you drill down into an individual site, it takes you over to our dashboard here. So this is customizable, which widgets show up there. So you can customize it based on your customer and your needs, what you want to know about. But you can see looking through here, it's showing you how many access points are assigned to that site, how many are online, how many of them are, or how heavily they are loaded as far as users goes. You can see things on here like how many overall clients are on there, your PoE usage versus budget. If you're using our NSG gateways, you get this report here, which breaks down traffic based on individual application being used and based on individual user. And then we've got these drop-down menus up at the top, which make it really easy for you to jump between sites or jump between customers without having to back out. You simply pull up the list and choose the new customer or new site you'd like to jump to. And then all the configuration is done over on the left-hand side of the screen. So here's a view here of the wireless LAN status screen. This is showing us the wireless LAN clients. We've got a visual representation of clients over time. You can change the window there. And then we've got a list here of status of stuff of those clients. And again, this is all customizable. You can choose which columns to put on here. You can choose over which period of time you want to look at stuff, but it's showing you client device, whether they're currently connected or not, which SSID they were connected to, which AP they were connected to, whether they were using the 5 gigahertz or the 2.4 gigahertz radio, signal strength, transmit and data rate. So all sorts of information that you need is right there for you. So this is giving you some insights onto the network itself here, showing you bandwidth utilization over time, top client devices, things like that. Here's the switch page here, so you can see all of your ports, visually identified whether a device is plugged in, whether they're gigabit or fast Ethernet, and whether or not they're using PoE. Makes it really easy to see what's going on there. And we've got some tools here for you, such as the ability to ping things, to look at the MAC tables, reboot the switches. Most of our Nebula devices have a locator LED you can turn on. So if you're going on site and need to swap out some hardware, you can turn on this indicator LED to make it a lot easier to see which device it is you need to locate and find. And again, visual graphs of what's been going on traffic-wise there. When it comes to port configuration, all of your ports show up. One big list. You can choose which ports you want to configure and then simultaneously configure multiple ports at the same time. You can see it's got all of the functions you normally see on here, VLAN tags, STP guard, whether PoE is enabled, etc. So that's all included with the free version of Nebula. We've also got something we call the Professional Pack. So the Professional Pack is an add-on pack that you can buy that unlocks additional features. So we'll go through some of those additional features of what you get by upgrading to the Pro Pack. So you get a Wi-Fi health report, which helps chart signal strength for individual clients over time to help you identify clients that might be having issues. We help do automatic channel width management, not just channel selection, but the actual width, whether it's a 20 megahertz band, 80 megahertz band. We can help try to automatically move clients from one AP to another to see if that helps with performance, and generate this report here for you to help you troubleshoot things. So some of the other stuff we do here by going to the Nebula Pro Pack, it allows you to use email and app push alerts when devices go offline, and that's configurable how long a device doesn't check into the cloud before it sends you a notification. We upgrade the logs from a week's worth of logs to a year's worth of logs stored in the cloud for you to keep an eye on. We keep an audit log, which keeps track of all configuration changes and which user made those changes. So you can always go back and find out who changed something and when, and so you can talk to them to find out why. And we give you a number of custom reports you can set up that can automatically email to yourself to keep an eye on things, or email to your customer to show them what's going on. You can add your logo to those emailed reports so your customer is seeing your branding. On the visualizing side of things here, we automatically generate a topology view so you can see which devices are plugged into which other devices. Again, it's a nice tool to have if you're troubleshooting issues on the network, or if you're not too familiar with the network and you're trying to maybe make some changes, you can get a quick view there. We have a similar view for VPN tunnels as well. If you're doing IPTV, this is primarily for our hospitality VARs. We give you a IPTV report, lets you see what's been going on in the network. We also automatically will recognize problems with your IPTV streams and give you suggestions of what settings to change to help solve those issues. So here's what the report looks like here. Won't spend too much time on it because most of you are not doing IPTV. So Pro Pack allows you to create what are called configuration templates. So you can change settings across multiple sites at the same time. So, you know, your customer's got 5 or 10 sites and they're now changing the guest password. You can do that through here. You can change some policies as far as your switches go. If you're setting up a new site for your customer, you can clone an existing switch configuration or an existing site configuration. So you don't have to configure it all from scratch. And we give you the ability here to back things up, create restore points. So you can easily go back if you need to, if you've made some configuration changes that didn't work out. The other add-on pack we have is our security pack. So this is our UTM features, the Unified Threat Management features. So this is for our security gateways. It gives you access to a number of different reports that you can see and send to your customers. It has something that we call, whoops, slide didn't display there, application awareness, the ability to create policy routes based on individual applications. So it makes it really easy to handle some advanced stuff like blocking Messenger, blocking video calls, things like that. This is just showing us here some of the different reports we have here. I believe this report is our content filtering report, showing you which sites were blocked, and you can see which users were accessing those sites that were blocked. Antivirus reports showing you what sort of attacks have been blocked, you know, what the attack was, where it came from. So again, really nice report to have to share with your customers to help justify paying for these UTM services, to show them that, look, it is doing something. So to summarize, the core Nebula is free. Professional Pack is available as either an annual license or a one-time perpetual license, and unlocks a number of features here that are really nice for troubleshooting, for generating reports, for more proactive management of your customers' locations. Not everybody needs it. So you've got that option. And in the case of the Pro Pack, you know, if you do the annual route and the license is expired and you decide, you know what, you don't need it anymore, that's fine. It just automatically rolls back to the free version. And then we've got the security pack, which is just for the extra UTM services. So that's our application intelligence, intrusion detection and prevention, antivirus, content filtering, and the reporting. So at the moment here, the only security gateways that work with Nebula are the dedicated NSG series. So we've got 4 different models of NSG. The main difference is just the horsepower of the device and the port configuration. All of them include 1 year of Nebula Pro Pack and 1 year of the UTM services out of the box. So you don't have to buy those out of the box. Now, coming soon, we will be expanding Nebula functionality to our USG Flex series, into our ATP series, and that will be in the very near future. There will be some announcements when we get a little bit closer to being able to roll that out, but that is happening very soon. So that's for you, Richard. You were asking about that. So USG Flex, and I believe the ATP models as well will be getting UTM support or Nebula support in the near future here. Should be end of this quarter, I think. On the switch side of things, we have our dedicated NSW series switches. These are in the process of being EOL. These could only be used with Nebula. The focus going forward here is on what we call Nebula Flex. So these are our switches that can be used either as a traditional standalone switch or can be managed in Nebula. You have the choice on how to do that. So that's our GS1920 V2 series, XGS 1930 series, XS 1930 series, XS 3800s, GS 2220s, and GS 1350s. So basically all of our, true business class switches, pretty much all of them at this point support Nebula Flex in one form or another. As you can see, some of them are going to be labeled Nebula Flex Pro, meaning they include 1 year of the Pro Pack automatically out of the box. And on the AP side of things, it's sort of the same scenario. We've had the NAP series access points for a while now. These could only be used with Nebula. These are all being phased out in place of Nebula Flex. So basically at this point, pretty much all of our access points, with like 2 exceptions, all support Nebula. So if they're labeled here Nebula Flex, it means they can be used either standalone or they can be used in the Nebula cloud. If they're labeled Nebula Flex Pro, they can be used standalone. They can be managed via one of our wireless LAN controllers or our security gateways, or can be used in Nebula. So Nebula Flex for APs is dual mode, Nebula Flex Pro is tri-mode, and again, Nebula Flex Pro devices come with 1 year of Pro Pack out of the box. So that's it, guys. That's today's presentation. If this sounds kind of interesting and you want to give it a try, you can go to nebula.zyxel.com. On the webpage there, we've got some demo credentials. You can log in with that demo to check things out. It's a couple of different hotels we've got that are using some Nebula stuff. So you can log in and play around with the demo. If you'd like to get your hands on some hardware, reach out to your salesperson. As long as you are a qualified partner, we can hook you up with a 60-day demo of various equipment to get you some hands-on usage of Nebula. And with that, guys, I'm opening it up to questions. So Reza is asking here if our product comes with year licenses. So again, it depends on the product itself. The security gateways all come with 1 year of Pro Pack and 1 year of the UTM services out of the box. And then when we're looking at switches and access points, those that are labeled as Nebula Flex will not come with any license out of the box. They'll simply work with the free version of Nebula. If they're labeled Nebula Flex Pro, they include 1 year of Pro Pack. And you can always add Pro Pack to the regular Nebula Flex devices as well as an extra thing. So it just depends which model you're looking at. Our sales guys can help you out with that, figuring out which models you need. Any other questions? While we're waiting here, maybe people are typing stuff in. Feel free to email me directly. My email's there on the screen. It's seanr@zyxel.com. Sean is spelled SHAWN, then the letter R at ZYXEL.com. Feel free to give me feedback. Feel free to ask me questions offline. Feel free to give me suggestions for other sorts of webinars you would like to see us do for you guys that you would find valuable. Let us know. Donald is asking, were any of the Nebula gateways affected by the ZYXEL breach? No, none of them were. It only affected our USG series products and only those with the 4.6 release 0 firmware, which we had only pushed out and released for, I think, something like 2 weeks before we took it down. We've got a dedicated security bulletin on that on our website you can go to. I think it's got the timeline on there. But yeah, it was something that was released as a mistake. We pulled it down within, I think, 2 weeks, within just a few days of being notified of the issue. And then just shortly after that, we released a patch. So if you check your firmware, if it's 4.6 CO .0, it needs to be updated. But if it's .1 or if it's 4.5 or anything that's other than 4.60, it does not have the issue. Richard is asking here, did I say USG Flex firewalls will be supported? Yes. USG Flex will be supported, and I believe also the ATP will be supported. We're shooting for the end of this quarter, I believe, to launch it, but you know, it's software solutions, so if it's not ready, it's not ready, but that's what we're shooting for at this point. It's coming here. So if it's not by the end of this quarter, it'll be early next quarter. Um, but we're shooting for the end of this quarter, as I believe there's still the current date when we're planning to launch that support. And again, while we're waiting here to see if anyone else has any questions, I do want to let you guys know that we do have user forums on our website that you can go to. So this is, you know, a forum where you can get in touch with other ZYXEL users, get help from other users, ask questions. Kind of the cool thing about our user forums, it is actively monitored by our product development team and our R&D team. So it's a place where you can easily provide feedback and know that it's going to be seen by people who can make those changes. And they will often wade into conversations and provide answers to questions people may have. So it's more than just user on user. So nice tool. If you haven't played around with it, might be worth checking out and spending some time poking around on there. It was the first place that we announced, for instance, that USG problem we had with the credentials. That was the first place where that information was posted. It's also generally the first place probably where you will find the USG Flex. Once it gets added to Nebula, that'll be probably the first place where the announcement will be made prior to the press releases and stuff going out. Okay, guys, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. If you did have something, again, just email me directly, seanr@zyxel.com. Thanks for joining us, guys. I hope you guys found this valuable. Thank you.